dhasheen congress woman dhasheen sidana ka soo wada baxnay haddaba Umar waa ka xumahayo Virginia qaboobaa lagu dhalay laakiin se waan adopt gareynay sidarna wax badan ma joogina.
So it really just was not all that great of a week for these radical pro-crime socialist mayoral candidates in major cities, whether that's the infamous Zohran Mandani out of New York or his idiotic clone Omar Fateh over in Minneapolis. Apparently both of these colorful characters are currently being exposed for the fraudsters and cheaters that they actually are. Whether that's cheating at the bench press and still failing to do it correctly, or apparently, and even more seriously here, cheating in the very local elections where they won the endorsements of the Democratic Party. Keep in mind, these are the very types of victories that are used to argue that the new young Democrats and this socialist wave is the future. What if I told you that was completely fraudulent? It didn't even happen. In today's video, we're going to explain both of these things, right? Why both of these characters are currently being embroiled in scandal. Two major stories here to discuss. First and foremost, out of Minneapolis, apparently Omar Fateh will now be losing his mayoral endorsement from the local Democratic Party, specifically the Minnesota Democrat Farmer Labor League, after it turns out his election was not even legitimate. It was stolen, in the words of their party, not even me saying that. We'll explain for you apparently what has happened here. I mean, just look at that face. By the way, his family with a long track record of committing fraud, needless to say, it might also be the case here. And we also got to react to this video of Mandani because what in the world was that? So we'll tell you all about it. First, though, do us a favor as usual. If you enjoy our content, make sure you hit that like button down below and subscribe to the channel if you are new. We're almost at 500K subscribers. Help us get there. Hit that red button. And with that in mind, so first and foremost, I guess let's start with Mr. Fateh here. I'm sure everyone is well familiar with Mamdani, but if you've not heard of this character out of Minneapolis, as I said, this is essentially just another clone. He's running on the same ideas of rent control, which have failed in every major city on earth where they've been tried, or the pro-crime idea that we need to rethink public safety by not having public safety. But I think the most telling aspect of Fateh, and apparently who we're dealing with here, is the fact that on repeated occasions, he has referred to not Minneapolis, not Minnesota, not the United States, all three municipalities where he's indeed running to be a representative, a politician, but instead refers to the nation of Somalia, where his family is originally from, as quote-unquote our home, right? Doesn't that just tell you everything? He claims he's American. He's trying to run for American office, but in his own words, he's really advocating for a foreign country across the ocean where, he claims to value so much, but apparently he will not go live in. Take a listen.
We should make dua for him and pray for him. I understand that our Somali communities are all connected to each other. Here in Minnesota and back home, and I ask for your support. There's always been a link between our community here as well as back home, and I'm running to bridge that gap and unite all of us and represent all of us, because when we succeed here, we succeed everywhere. And I'm hoping to do that just like Abdurazak, inshallah.
Yeah, well, I seem to be noticing a pattern here of Democrats running these people for office who claim to be American, claim that they're seeking a role in the governance and political structure of America, but openly admit, not really, right? That's not really why I want to represent people of this country. I'm not even really, in his own words, right, truly seeing myself as a part of this country. Anyways, glad to see that assimilation is going so well over there. But that in mind, it was notable just 2 months ago when, kind of following the trend of Mandani beating out Cuomo, this guy right here, Omar Fateh, apparently won the endorsement of the local Minneapolis DFL. That's kind of, I guess, their form of a primary here. And he did so against the incumbent Democrat Mayor Jacob Frey. Now, I'd like everyone to keep in mind, remember 2020? Remember this guy right here? Okay, you're not exactly talking about someone who is some type of moderate or center-right Democrat by any means. This guy he beat out already was extremely radical. He quite literally bent the knee to BLM. He allowed his whole city to burn. He cheered it on. But apparently that was never enough in the end after this guy beat him out for that election. And obviously that gives him a major advantage going into November. Except apparently now, 2 months later, we're finding out that might not actually be the case. Indeed, the DFL has now revoked that endorsement, not because they simply didn't like the guy, but apparently the election was massively fraudulent and rife with errors and simply illegitimate. And the reasons why, by the way, that we're about to lay out for you guys in this video are utterly striking and hysterical. So here you go. Take a listen to those very details. And, well, sometimes the jokes do write themselves. But check it out. Here's why Fateh is losing his local Democrat Party endorsement.
I want to get to Esme Murphy right now, who is in the studio with a big developing political story. Esme?
Well, Amelia, it's a stunning, unprecedented move in a mayor's race that's received national attention. The state DFL party is revoking the Minneapolis DFL endorsement of State Senator Omar Fateh for mayor. Fateh, a Democratic Socialist, won that endorsement last month in an upset over incumbent Mayor Jacob Frey. Mayor Frey's campaign alleged there were rampant errors in the endorsement process, including a failure to count hundreds of votes. And the state DFL investigation did find nearly 200 votes missing. It also found that the check-in sheet was left unsecured and that the entire Ward 5 credentials book was lost. Because of those findings from the state DFL, the Minneapolis DFL is not allowed to endorse a candidate for mayor this year, and it's been placed on a 2-year probation. It's also ruled that all candidates get access to the party's voter rolls. Usually only the endorsed candidate gets that information. In a statement from Mayor Frey's campaign, the mayor said he's glad that this inaccurate and obviously flawed process was set aside, and he will look forward to having a full and honest debate with Senator Fateh about our city's future. We are still awaiting a formal statement from Senator Fateh's campaign.
Well, apparently, by the way, we did indeed get the response from Fateh's campaign. He held this whole event to clap back at Jacob Frey. And the solution is to just apparently cuss at the guy and scream and be very angry. So, I don't know. That's what they're saying. Take a listen.
Jacob Frey is going to continue to appeal to his investor class, his big donors. He's going to continue to make backroom deals, and he's going to continue to stage these weak-ass walkouts. And you know what? He can keep on walking, and we'll help you pack your fucking bags, Jacob, because Omar Fateh is our next mayor.
Okay, well, apparently I've been saying the name of the Minneapolis mayor wrong, so Jacob Frey, there's your correction. But anyways, if you kind of miss, they didn't go into full detail in the news clip what really happened here. 2 simple reasons why the election was deemed illegitimate. First and foremost, they did not really keep a sturdy registration sheet. In other words, they allowed anyone to go into the building and vote, and it would clearly appear here that Fateh seemed to have like bust people, it would appear, right? Brought his supporters in, they voted on the thing, and they weren't actually supposed to be voting in the DFL. They were not members of the party or whatever. That's firstly. But secondly, the reason why there were votes missing and all this garbage, it turns out was actually because of the fact that they were using faulty voting machines. Doesn't that sound very familiar, huh? Inaccurate voting machines. So here is the statement. The CBRC determines that the challengers have proven by clear and convincing evidence that the endorsement of Omar Fateh for mayor of Minneapolis was facilitated by the use of a flawed electronic voting system, which caused a substantial undercount on the first ballot of the mayoral endorsement, and which caused another candidate to be dropped from consideration after such first ballot. Now, first of all, I have the serious question here. How does this keep happening with these so-called voting machines? You know, especially in something like this. You know, generally speaking, if you use Google Forms, if you do a freaking Kahoot, I don't know, a lot of things, you do it by text message, right? There's a million ways to actually get this to count accurately, especially you're dealing a couple hundred people in a conference room. And yet, time and time again, for some reason, these electronic voting systems keep screwing up. that does tell you a lot. And, well, you know, maybe there are some bigger implications there that we ought to consider once again. But that's just astonishing. And by the way, you know, considering they're now on probation and all this stuff, I really have to ask questions as to whether or not these were all sincere errors, or this was a collusion scheme, right, by this character right here to indeed steal the election. Because it's worth noting, this individual, Omar Fateh, has a long lifetime track record of, let's just say, in being involved in fraud, in fraudulent things. And, well, the idea here, I guess the so-called conspiracy theory I have, that he actively, you know, sent people in to go vote for him and then, you know, made sure the voting system was all screwed up. I'm not really sure, but it seems kind of plausible, because consider the guy's life.
As state senator, Minneapolis mayoral candidate Omar Fateh has routinely supported programs rife with fraud.
And when we look at the pattern of fact surrounding the policies which Fateh has supported, things like housing support services, which now lay at the center of a massive new federal investigation, and things like Feeding Our Future, which provided fraudsters a smorgasbord of free taxpayer cash under the auspices of helping the needy. It would seem that the through line of these policies is that they line the pockets of corrupt individuals.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm just saying. Okay, clearly something shady went on here. But with that in mind, I think part of you also has to feel like if the Democrat Party is going to make this bed, then they should also lie in it. Because by their standards, this should have been a completely legitimate election. After all, the first complaint is what? They didn't verify people at the door. They didn't confirm who was eligible to actually vote in this election. Okay, I think it's obvious where I'm going with this. But that's not, they don't want that in general elections, right? They oppose voter ID. They don't think you should have to verify yourself before you go to vote for a Democrat against a Republican. So how come when it's a Democrat against a Democrat, that makes it illegitimate? Same question on voting machines, by the way. Because when Trump has repeatedly said he doesn't like voting machines, he wants there to be old school paper ballots hand counted the old school way. They say, oh, he's a conspiracy theorist, all these things. And yet here you have an election where they're saying, oh, we have to overturn it because the voting machine screwed up. So part of me truly has to look at, Jacob Frey and say, no, this, what's your comment on this? What is your statement? Omar Fateh, by your standards, almost in a sense, did win the election legitimately because it's basically a de facto Democrat primary. So should a Democrat primaries, Democrat local endorsements, whatever you call it here like this, right, be dictated by the very voter rules that they want to make nationwide? I'm just saying. But anyways, here's the Minneapolis mayor responding to his victory on that front.
This is not a scenario where you need to take my word for it. As the state party said, and as the investigation showed, this was a process that was rife with errors and misconduct. Hundreds of people didn't get counted out of hundreds of votes in total. There was an entire ward where nobody knew who the ward delegates were. The whole thing went missing. I don't know. We still don't know exactly how they became to the determination based on that ward. The data itself was given to the other campaigns and they were allowed to edit it.
Yeah, again, I think it's clear what happened. I think it's clear who stole that voter list. I think it's clear what the quote-unquote other campaign was doing to manipulate this election, okay? This absolute sleazeball. But again, Democrats, what's the problem with that? That's what you guys want for elections. I don't really understand it. But anyways, there you have it. So here's hoping that this character Omar continues to not really have such a successful time in Minneapolis, because I feel like although Jacob Frey is also equally a disaster, the city can't take much worse, okay? It's already been turned into Mogadishu and Black Hawk Down. It doesn't need to be made the version of that on steroids, okay? So anyways, there you have it. Now, that said, let us transition here to talking about the one and only Zohran Mandani, okay, his friend over in New York City, because first and foremost, I think it's hilarious to this very day that still, despite all the questions about it, despite Mandani's yearning for mainstream support, he still cannot get a full endorsement from Hakeem Jeffries, who has been giving the same answer about Mandani for the past 3 months here. So take a listen.
Andrew Cuomo has made the point that Zohran Mandani lives in a rent-controlled apartment, even though he is not considered quote unquote poor, and that Andrew Cuomo would actually try to create a law in the state that would prevent people like Mandani from living in a rent-controlled apartment. Do you think that he should live in a rent-controlled apartment?
Well, listen, that's an issue for the state legislators and the state government to work out.
No, but it's a fascinating issue about affordability in this city, and whether there are folks who are living in rent-controlled apartments all across this city that effectively should be going towards poor people who need that affordability.
It's a legitimate issue that has been raised, and the Mamdani campaign is going to have to address it.
So I think it's safe to say that the tensions between these candidates and Democratic leadership still remains at an all-time high. And no, Zohran will not respond to this question as to why he is a champagne socialist, much like all of these characters. But apparently he did respond to the allegations of whether or not he can bench press more than a high schooler. And apparently the question there is no, because over the weekend he went viral after this video where, he's at some type of outdoor fair or something. There's a bench press. People call him to do it. And he just utterly disgraces himself, as we'll show you in a second. So keep this in mind. He is 33 years old. And it appears on this bench that there are 135 pounds on it. Some have pointed out they look like 25-pound plates, not 35, so it may be as low as 115. But for the purposes of giving him the benefit of the doubt, let's just say there's 135 on here. In gym terms, for those of you guys who never benched or something, let me just say this is not a lot, right? This is basically what I was doing for reps in 9th grade, right? Between 125 to 145. And just keep that in mind, because he's not being asked here to do reps or anything crazy. It's just can you actually lift the weight? And take a look at this. Take a look at this video. This is really something, to say the least. So
this is how you move up in the pole. This is how you move up in the pole. Yeah. This is how you move up in the poles. Yeah. Good play, man. 500. Yeah. Let's go. Yeah. Let me get one more. Let me get three. Yeah.
So again, that's 135. That's something that athletic 8th and 9th graders are able to do. And as you can see here, people are mocking the fact Clay Travis, many are getting involved in. Well, he's 33 years old. He can't even do 135. He can only do 2 sets of 135. But I also point out there, no, I wouldn't even really say he did 2 sets, because if you watch the video here, his spotter basically pulled the whole weight. Right, look at this. Right, so don't even say, guys, that Zohran managed to do 2 reps of 135 or 115, however much it is. The spotter's doing all the work. Maybe he did 35, right? Not 135. So, just a pretty hilarious video here. But it does kind of, I guess, tell you a lot about the ridiculousness of this individual. You're apparently the masculine icon of what left-wing guys can be. And you can't lift 135 for even 2 reps, frankly. And I really have the question as well as to, if you can't do this or you don't think you can, why you would go up there and make this much of a humiliation out of yourself. It's one thing to just say, okay, I can't do it. I'm not that strong. I'm not going to get out here in public and make an embarrassment. He chose to do this. He chose to show to the world, hey guys, I can't even lift 135, okay? And, needless to say, I mean, that's basically what you have. Of course, taking no prisoners here, his rival in the race, incumbent Democrat Mayor Eric Adams, is pointing out how incredibly easy it actually is. Again, for those of you who are don't know, okay, this is not that hard. Frankly, I think most women could do this. For 2 reps especially, it's not that hard, right? He goes out here and posts himself lifting the same weight. You can see, actually, it's the same event as Zohran Mandani, and pointing out Eric Adams is 64 years old. Zohran Mandani is 33. Okay, and look how much Eric Adams destroys him on this. So he goes on to point out a lifetime of hard work versus a silver spoon. The results speak for themselves. He goes on here to say the weight of the job is too heavy for quote unquote mom scrawny. Okay, the only thing he can lift is your taxes. And you know what? To Eric Adams, I gotta give credit here on the messaging. That is completely true. So take a look. Yeah, so you're already seeing the responses here from the internet. Clay Travis is saying that if you had to be able to bench press your weight to vote, Republicans would beat Democrats like 95 to 5% in all elections. Probably true, by the way. Mom Scrawny is going viral here. Many people are pointing that out as well. Here's someone else who says that's barely 100 pounds. Those are not 45-pound plates. Yes. And yes, indeed, right? As I said, the spotter was lifting a portion of the weight. It looks like he's lifting most of the weight, frankly. He didn't take his hands off the bars. And yeah, people in the video clapping for this is beyond embarrassing. Well, there you have it. Zohran, cameras exist. And, well, you know, what a symbol, by the way. Keep in mind, guys, this is the future of the Democrat Party, right? This is the Democrat Party of, you know, supposedly now they're going to be relatable. It's okay to be masculine in the party. We want broadly appeal to Americans. We're not woke anymore, all of this stuff. Look how normal guys we are because we go to the gym too. Okay? And look at us. Watch this. Watch this. This is Democrat masculinity right here. Surely Joe Rogan will bring us on the podcast next presidential election, right? He's not even lifting it. So anyways, guys, there you have it. Let me know your thoughts on all of this in the comment section down below. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you are new. And until next time, God bless and peace.